in a family where the father knew radio like the back of his hand. He was in his middle 20s. Radio came out, I think, around 1920. And he was in on it. I never asked him how he got in on radio, but he could take a radio apart and put it back together again. No diagram, nothing to show him what to do, just to feel. To the chagrin of Mom Perkins, we told him to get that stuff off of my bed, you know? He was just a model of radio. Some people have an antenna on their roof for TV radio. We didn't even have a radio for the radio. Back in those days, they didn't have, there was no TV. It was radio. Radio was the king. And we didn't have an outdoor radio, but Dad was a whiz at radio. There was a gizmo in the radio. There was an internal radio. He overcame that, or used it, and he augmented it, and we could get WGN in Chicago. That's like 700 miles away, an AM radio. That was like unheard of. WJR in Detroit. Never knowing that I would work in the city of Detroit, but we could sit up and listen to WJR in Detroit, which is like 550 miles away, on AM radio. He had an old Philco radio, and he drilled holes in it, and he had doodads coming out of it and curlicues, and those were his extra antennas. And I could sit up with him. Oh, my mom would go into my bedroom and sleep. And I'd sit up with my dad till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning when I didn't have to go to school the next day on the weekend. And we listened to radio outside of Philadelphia, outside of Pennsylvania, WJR in Detroit, WGN in Chicago, and all over the place. He was just a marvel at that. And he passed before I even got into radio. I could hear him now saying, "You ever listen to my son? He's on the radio," but he died 9 years before I got into radio. I got into radio in 1964, he died in 1955. But my mom was there, Mom Perkins, and even though he was gone, she encouraged me and said, "You sound good, son. You're gonna be in radio one day. You're gonna be in radio one day." I would try things out on her. How does this sound, Mom? How's that sound, Mom? I would listen, take things out of the newspaper, the Daily News, and the Inquirer, and become a newsman in my bedroom with a tape recorder and 2 turntables and an old lamp with a microphone hanging down, and I would become a disc jockey and a newsman. Newsman, I said, well, I'll give it over to Jim Jones, a DJ now. We'd go back and forth. Then I'd turn on the radio and see if I sounded anything like the guys and ladies on the radio, There was a vast difference, of course, but that's how I got my training. Listening to some of the great voices in Philadelphia radio and beyond Philadelphia. As I said, my dad could go beyond Philadelphia and we could listen to stations all over the place. So I got a good training. And I was almost born into radio because I don't go back any further in memory, further than 5 years. And I know what happened in my 5th year. I don't remember what day, but it's in my 5th year. And I was at the Phase Theater at 40th and Market. I'm sure you all don't remember that because it was probably before your time. I was 5 years of age. It was 1980, it was 84 years ago. And I remember it like it was yesterday. But things that I had forgotten because I guess about 3 or 4 years ago I had a stroke. That slows you down, but a stroke can take you out. It didn't take me out, but it slowed the memory a little bit. But I can remember things that happened 80 and 70, 75 years ago like I remember yesterday. But don't ask me what happened yesterday. I'll forget that, But this is why I'm going to go on to podcasting, because I remember the things that happened to me 75 and 80 years ago. And I remember that day at the Faith Theater at 40th and Market. I don't know what the heck it is, and I've not been in that neighborhood for years. But my brother took me there, my older brother. He was 9 years my senior. There were 5 of us in the Perkins family, 5 kids. He was the one next to me in age. The other ones went out from him. I didn't know them very well until I became an adult and could talk to them on an adult level. They moved out. So I was at home with Mom, Pop Perkins, and a brother and a sister and myself, who helped me in their own ways, unwittingly, like my father, unwittingly get into radio. I had a lot of help along the way from a lot of people, believe me. So I saw a fellow by the name of Lucky Millender. I don't know if anybody knows that name or not. He was a band leader back in the day. He was with the Camp Calloway, Lionel Hampton, and some of the great stars of yesterday in the big band era. And I remember that like it was yesterday. At the Faith Theater at 40th and Market, Lucky Millender came out. We had a 17-piece band. And I remember he had a white suit on. He was not a musician. He could not even read music. But he was like Camp Calloway. He had a band, but he couldn't play an instrument. But he was a showman. He was a DJ. He was a lot of things. And he had this white suit on. He came out. And he was a rather diminutive fellow. He was about 5'1" or 5'2". And he stepped on a little podium. And somebody, I guess, larger. And he began to lead his band. And like I said, I can recall that it was yesterday. And there was a lady sitting in front of me. And I think it was wintertime because I remember my brother and I taking off our coats and putting me in my seat so I could see up over the lady in front of me who had a big green hat on. I remember the hat was green, and so that I could check out Lucky Millender. I don't know who else was on the program, but I remember Lucky Millender 84 years ago at the old VA Theater. Look it up sometime. You get him on YouTube, and you'll see it was 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. And you may see a Duke Ellington picture. You may even see Lucky Millender. I remember like it was yesterday. So that was my introduction to jazz music, big band jazz through Lucky Millender and his band.